the internet is in chaos again, and this time it's a clash nobody saw coming. Nicki Minaj has stepped into the storm, not to fight Cardi B but to defend her, while turning her sharpest shade toward none other than Offset. That's right, after years of tension between Nicki and Cardi, the queen of rap herself has taken Cardi's side and blasted Offset, exposing him for being a leech who's been draining Cardi emotionally and financially. Social media went into meltdown the moment Nicki's comments surfaced. Fans couldn't believe it. Nicki and Cardi, once seen as rivals, suddenly standing on the same side. And not only that, Offset, one of hip-hop's most talked-about figures, being called out by Nicki Minaj herself. The shade, the drama, and the receipts are all out in the open now. So what really happened behind the scenes? What pushed Nicki Minaj to publicly support Cardi B, a woman she once clashed with? And what exactly did she reveal about Offset that has the internet questioning his loyalty and intentions? Today, we're diving deep into the story, shaking the entire rap world, from Nicki's shocking revelations to Cardi's silent reactions and Offset's suspicious moves. This isn't just celebrity gossip, this is a power shift in hip-hop. And the truth Nicki dropped might just change everything. Stay locked in, because what you're about to hear is pure chaos, and it's only getting started. When Nicki Minaj speaks, the world listens, and this time her words have set the entire internet ablaze. It started when Nicki appeared on a surprise live stream with a few trusted insiders. During the conversation, she mentioned how certain men in the industry use their women's fame to stay relevant, a statement that instantly had fans connecting the dots. Within minutes, speculation erupted that Nicki was talking about Offset and his strained relationship. With Cardi B, the situation gained traction when Nicki liked a post defending Cardi from recent rumors, a rare move that sent shockwaves through both fan bases. People couldn't believe it. For years, Nicki and Cardi's relationship had been defined by tension, subliminal diss tracks, award show altercations, and online shade. But now, Nicki was publicly standing behind her. Insiders close to Nicki claim that she's grown frustrated seeing women like Cardi constantly dragged through scandals while the men behind them escape accountability. One source said, "Nicki's not saying this out of hate, she's saying it out of truth. She's seen how Offset plays the media, and she's not afraid to call it out." Offset, meanwhile, had been facing heavy criticism for his alleged behavior toward Cardi. Reports claimed he'd been living lavishly while Cardi handled the bulk of family responsibilities, even as rumors of infidelity resurfaced. Fans noted that Cardi seemed emotionally drained, posting cryptic tweets about betrayal, exhaustion, and moving forward alone. Nicki's statement seemed to validate what many fans suspected, that Offset was, in fact, dragging Cardi down rather than supporting her. The timing couldn't have been more explosive. It came just days after Cardi's emotional Instagram Live, where she hinted that certain people in her life were more of a burden than a blessing. That's when Nicki dropped the line that changed everything. "Some people don't build with you, they feed off you." The internet went wild. Screenshots, reaction videos, and think pieces flooded timelines. Fans interpreted the comment as a direct hit toward Offset, with some calling it Nicki's most savage truth bomb in years. While Nicki didn't name names directly, her history with Cardi, and the sudden shift in tone, told the world everything it needed to know. Instead of beef, there was solidarity. Instead of rivalry, there was sisterhood. And for the first time in years, the rap community saw two powerful women standing on the same side of a storm. Offset, of course, didn't stay quiet for long. Within hours, he posted a cryptic message to his Instagram story, "Ain't nobody feeding off nothing, I'm built for this." But by then, the damage was done. Fans weren't buying it. Memes of Nicki calling him a leech spread like wildfire, and discussions about his loyalty resurfaced everywhere. It was more than a diss. It was a shift in the narrative. Nicki Minaj, once seen as a rival, had become an unexpected voice of support for Cardi B. Her comments didn't just expose Offset, they redefined the dynamics of power, respect, and authenticity in hip-hop relationships. Behind the scenes, industry insiders say Nicki and Cardi's teams have quietly been in communication for months, slowly rebuilding trust. Whether this leads to a collaboration or just mutual respect remains to be seen. But one thing's clear, Offset's name might never recover from this kind of public shade. The story was far from over. As the headlines spread, Cardi's silence became louder. Her followers noticed she unfollowed several accounts linked to Offset's circle. Others claimed she was preparing for something big. Maybe a response. Maybe a new era. But one thing everyone agreed on. Nicki Minaj had just flipped the entire narrative on its head. When Nicki Minaj's statement dropped, it was like lighting a match in a room already filled with gasoline. The internet didn't just react, it exploded. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, every platform became a war zone. Fans, bloggers, and influencers couldn't stop talking about the sudden twist. Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, two names that once defined one of hip-hop's biggest rivalries, now standing on the same side. And Offset, the man caught in the middle, facing the flames alone. Within hours, hashtags like Nicki defends Cardi and Offset exposed trended worldwide. People dug up old interviews, concert clips, and social media posts to find hints of what could have led to this moment. Every detail became a clue, every reaction became a headline. Cardi's silence only added fuel to the speculation. Was she secretly in on this alliance? Was this her quiet way of letting Nicki fight a battle she couldn't fight herself? Meanwhile, Nicki's fans, the Barbs, joined forces with Cardi's Barty Gang. Two fan bases that once clashed daily were suddenly united by a common enemy: Offset. Memes flooded timelines. Some mocked Offset's reputation, others praised Nicki for doing what Cardi couldn't. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was movement energy, but not everyone saw it as empowerment. Offset's loyal followers and industry peers came to his defense, claiming the whole narrative was being twisted. They argued that Nicki was using Cardi's pain as a publicity stunt, a way to stay relevant while her next project brewed. Yet for every critic, there were 10 fans ready to counter. Armed with receipts, a clip began circulating online, allegedly showing Offset during a backstage argument, yelling about being the reason Cardi blew up. The video, though grainy, hit hard. It reignited the idea that Offset had always struggled to handle Cardi's success. People remembered old incidents, public cheating scandals, emotional breakdowns, leaked messages, and tied them all together under one narrative. Offset was a leech feeding off Cardi's shine. Cardi's close friends started liking subtle posts, too. Posts about finding peace after letting go of energy, vampires, and not everyone who stands beside you supports you. Fans knew what that meant. The pattern was clear. In the middle of this digital firestorm, Nicki went live again. This time she didn't mention any names, but her tone said it all. Sometimes, she said, you see another woman go through the same battles you once did, and you can't stay quiet. Especially when the world keeps giving passes to the same kind of behavior that breaks women down. Those words were surgical. They hit deeper than any diss track could. Nicki wasn't just calling out Offset. She was calling out an entire culture that excuses toxic behavior when it's wrapped in fame. The live stream hit 1 million viewers in minutes, with thousands of comments flooding in. She's talking about Offset. Nicki's done playing nice. Meanwhile, Offset's team scrambled to do damage control. According to insiders, his PR manager advised him to stay silent, that responding would only make things worse. But silence became his enemy. The longer he said nothing, the more people believed he was guilty. Cardi, on the other hand, played it smart. She posted nothing controversial, no emotional captions, just photos with her kids and a few subtle lines about focusing on peace. But fans knew how to read between the lines. The energy shift was real. The woman once seen defending her man at all costs was now letting others speak for her, especially someone as powerful as Nicki Minaj. Behind the scenes, record label executives reportedly began to worry. Offset's upcoming projects risked being overshadowed by the controversy, and Cardi's image, though largely sympathetic, was being dragged back into public heartbreak again. But Nicki's involvement gave the story a whole new dimension. It wasn't just about relationship drama anymore. It was about industry politics. Think about it. For years, labels and media outlets have thrived off female rivalries. They sell records, fuel debates, and keep fans divided. But with Nicki and Cardi suddenly on the same page, the system that profited from their feud was now at risk. If these two powerhouse women joined forces for real, they'd dominate charts, tours, and cultural narratives. And that made some people nervous. Even insiders close to Offset admitted privately that Nicki's timing couldn't have been worse for him. He'd already been trying to repair his public image after multiple controversies, and now one comment from Nicki had undone months of quiet PR work. On YouTube, content creators jumped into the frenzy. Channels dedicated to celebrity gossip posted video after video, breaking down every reaction. Nicki Minaj exposes Offset. Here's the real story behind the drama became one of the most common titles of the week. Every thumbnail featured Offset looking stressed, Cardi looking distant, and Nicki looking fierce. Some fans even speculated that Cardi and Nicki had a private conversation before this all went public, that Nicki asked for permission to speak up, ensuring Cardi was comfortable with it. Whether true or not, the theory made sense. The respect in Nicki's tone didn't feel like she was speaking for Cardi. It felt like she was speaking with her. By day 3, Offset's silence had become unbearable for fans. His comment sections were flooded with messages like, "Say something," and "Nicki ended your PR career," but Offset stayed quiet. A few cryptic posts, a studio photo here, a song snippet there, weren't enough to cool the fire. Even celebrities started chiming in. Some sided with Nicki and Cardi, praising their unity. Others defended Offset, claiming he was being unfairly vilified. But the overall tone was clear. The public had shifted. Nicki Minaj, once criticized for feuds and shade, was now being seen as a protector, someone who stood up when she saw injustice. The moment became bigger than anyone expected. It wasn't just a celebrity drama, it was a reflection of how women in the industry are finally refusing to protect toxic men or play along with the silence. Nicki's choice to speak had cracked open a larger conversation. How often do powerful women have to carry the burden of supporting others who only take advantage of them? Offset's reputation was hanging by a thread. And as the internet continued to dissect every second of his past, one thing became clear. Nicki had flipped the narrative completely. What began as a feud had transformed into a statement. And in this new reality, Offset wasn't the hero of the story. He was the warning. While social media was burning with memes, reactions, and theories, something far more serious was happening behind the scenes. Insiders started to leak quiet whispers, things that were never meant to reach the public. For months, industry circles had been murmuring about tension between Cardi B and Offset. But no one expected that Nicki Minaj was already aware of just how deep those problems ran. According to sources close to both camps, Nicki and Cardi had reconnected months before the drama exploded online. It wasn't a flashy reconciliation. No cameras, no statements. Just two women sitting down privately to talk. The meeting reportedly took place at a private studio in New York City, where both were recording music for upcoming projects. For years, their teams had kept them apart, feeding into the narrative that they couldn't coexist. But this time, things were different. Cardi, tired and emotionally drained, finally opened up about what had really been happening in her marriage. She didn't bash Offset, she just spoke honestly. The loneliness, the betrayal, the constant rumors, and how it was affecting her ability to focus on her craft. Nicki listened quietly. For once, there was no competition in the room, just understanding. Nicki had been there before. She'd faced betrayal from men who claimed to support her, only to take advantage of her fame. She knew exactly how it felt to have your image twisted while you tried to hold everything together. That night, Nicki reportedly told Cardi something that stuck. "You don't owe anyone your peace, especially not someone who drains it." Those words became the emotional seed of what fans would later see explode online. The alliance wasn't random, it was personal. Nicki saw herself in Cardi. She saw another woman being dragged down while the world watched for entertainment. And when Offset's behavior started making headlines again, Nicki decided she wasn't going to stand by silently. But her public defense wasn't just about friendship. It was a calculated move that sent shockwaves through the industry. For years, executives and promoters had relied on the Nicki versus Cardi narrative to generate clicks, streams, and engagement. Divide and conquer, that's how the system worked. But now, with one simple show of unity, Nicki and Cardi had dismantled the very structure built to control them. Behind closed doors, Offset's team panicked. They'd known rumors about his behavior were circulating, but they never imagined someone of Nicki's stature would get involved. Calls were made, meetings were held, and damage control plans were drawn. The problem? Every attempt to silence the story only made it grow stronger. Even Offset's peers started distancing themselves. Some rappers who'd once collaborated with him began unfollowing him on social media, while others dropped cryptic tweets about fake loyalty and karma catching up. The industry is small, and when it smells weakness, it moves fast. Meanwhile, fans noticed something interesting. Cardi started appearing more confident online. Her posts felt lighter, more independent. She was showing up to events solo, glowing, laughing, and people noticed. It wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. It looked like she was finally stepping out of someone else's shadow. In the midst of all this, leaked screenshots began to circulate. Allegedly, Offset had been messaging people within the industry, trying to downplay Nicki's involvement. He was reportedly telling friends, "Nicki's just doing this for attention. She wants to stay relevant." But the leaks backfired. Fans accused him of gaslighting and trying to manipulate the narrative again. Nicki, however, didn't respond. Her silence spoke louder than any clapback. She had made her point, and she didn't need to say another word. In fact, her next few public appearances made headlines for all the right reasons. Poised, powerful, and unbothered. Then came the twist. An insider claimed that Nicki and Cardi were quietly working on a collab. While nothing was confirmed, whispers about a joint track began spreading like wildfire. Fans went into a frenzy. If true, this would be the biggest reconciliation moment in hip-hop history, and Offset's downfall would be part of what brought it together. The label executives weren't thrilled. A Cardi-Nicki collab would mean unity between two massive fan bases that had been at odds for years. The chaos that once drove engagement would vanish overnight. Peace doesn't sell, and drama does. But this time, the women were controlling the story, not the headlines. In the background, Offset was reportedly spiraling. Friends claimed he felt betrayed by both women, especially Cardi. He believed Nicki's words had brainwashed her against him. But the truth was simpler. Cardi had found her strength again, and Offset wasn't used to not being in control. Media outlets began to pick up new patterns too. For the first time, people weren't mocking Cardi for her heartbreak. They were praising her for her strength. And Nicki? She was being celebrated for her maturity and evolution. The Queen of Shade had become the Queen of Support. It was a complete image shift, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. As the weeks passed, the situation turned from scandal to symbolism. Commentators began analyzing Nicki's move as part of a broader cultural shift, women in hip-hop supporting each other instead of tearing each other down. And while Offset stayed mostly silent, his brand was quietly fading. Endorsements slowed down, streams dipped, and his fan base began questioning everything. In one particularly viral TikTok, a fan summed it up perfectly. Nicki didn't just expose Offset. She exposed the whole cycle, how women are pitted against each other while men get away with everything. That message resonated deeply. Fans weren't just watching for gossip anymore. They were watching for empowerment. And while neither Nicki nor Cardi confirmed any collaboration publicly, the energy was undeniable. They had both evolved from rivals to survivors, and now they were rewriting the narrative together. Offset's silence remained his biggest mistake. Every day he said nothing. The world filled in the blanks for him. And by now, those blanks painted him as the villain in a story that once made him look like a star. By the end of that month, one thing was certain. The tables had turned for good. Nicki had reclaimed her crown, Cardi had reclaimed her peace, and Offset had lost the one thing fame can't buy: respect. But as the spotlight shifted, one question began to echo across social media. If Nicki and Cardi were really working together, what were they planning next? The storm had finally passed, or so it seemed. But in the aftermath of Nicki Minaj's explosive defense of Cardi B and the public exposure of Offset's behavior, the hip-hop world was forever changed. What started as another celebrity feud had evolved into something much bigger. A cultural reset that forced fans, media, and artists to rethink the narratives they'd been feeding for years. Nicki Minaj's move had created a ripple effect. Suddenly, other female artists began speaking up about their own experiences, about the industry's double standards, toxic relationships, and how women are often forced to stay silent to protect the very men who hold them back. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a revolution wrapped in rhythm and rhyme. Offset, on the other hand, found himself isolated. His silence had cost him more than anyone expected. Endorsements were quietly dropped, collaborations were postponed, and even some of his label's executives started distancing themselves. The industry runs on image, and Offset's image had taken a hit that no PR team could easily repair. Cardi B, however, was thriving. Her glow-up was undeniable. She looked happier, freer, and more confident than ever before. She was showing up to award shows solo, smiling on red carpets, and posting empowering messages online. Fans noticed the change immediately. Gone was the woman who constantly defended her relationship in public. Now, she was a queen walking her path, unbothered, unafraid, and unshakable. Meanwhile, Nicki's decision to stand beside Cardi was paying off in unexpected ways. The media, once quick to paint her as the villain of every rap story, was now celebrating her as a voice of maturity and leadership. The headlines shifted from Nicki feuds again to Nicki speaks truth. Her fan base grew even stronger, with new audiences praising her transformation. But behind the smiles and social media posts, both women knew the story wasn't over. The industry doesn't like change, especially when women start rewriting the rules. According to insiders, certain executives tried to stir tension again, leaking anonymous stories suggesting Nicki and Cardi's friendship was fake, that Nicki had ulterior motives, or that Cardi was playing both sides. But fans weren't buying it this time. The energy had shifted for good. People were finally seeing how the system manipulated artists against each other for profit. Then came the ultimate twist. Whispers of a joint project. Word spread that Nicki and Cardi might be secretly working on a track that would address everything: the pain, the media chaos, the manipulation, and the empowerment that came after. No dices, no drama, just truth in lyrical form. The idea of both women uniting on a song sent fans into a frenzy. Imagine it. Two of the most powerful female rappers in the game, once divided by the industry, now standing together and spitting bars about reclaiming power and peace. The anticipation alone was enough to break the internet. Offset, on the other hand, was struggling to stay relevant. Every move he made was now compared to the new standards set by the women he once overshadowed. Even his music releases couldn't escape the shadow of the controversy. Every lyric was dissected, every video comment section filled with references to Nicki and Cardi. It was a PR nightmare that wouldn't end. Meanwhile, Nicki and Cardi's silence on the situation became their greatest weapon. They didn't need to talk. Their unity spoke for itself. Fans began posting side-by-side photos of them from award shows, captions reading, "This is what growth looks like." Two queens, one message, no more toxicity. The symbolism was powerful. What once divided them had now brought them together. As the weeks went by, something even more remarkable happened. The female rap scene shifted. Smaller artists, once too afraid to speak out, started finding their voices. Interviews, tweets, and podcasts began to echo the same message. Women supporting women wasn't just a trend, it was a movement. Nicki's statement that started it all, calling Offset out as a leech, had evolved into a metaphor for something bigger. It represented every person, man or woman, who drains another's energy, creativity, or light just to feel important. It wasn't just about Offset anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever tried to silence someone else's success. Even journalists started re-examining how they covered female artists. The old beef narrative was losing its charm. People were tired of seeing women pitted against each other. They wanted to see collaboration, unity, and empowerment. And Nicki and Cardi had just given them a blueprint. By the end of that month, both women were dominating headlines again, but this time for the right reasons. Nicki's new single was climbing charts, and Cardi had just announced her upcoming album. The public no longer viewed them as rivals. They were now seen as symbols of strength, resilience, and sisterhood. And Offset? He faded quietly into the background. No public statements, no big apologies, just a slow disappearance from the spotlight that once defined him. His silence, which once seemed strategic, had become symbolic, a reminder that sometimes when you take too much from others, the world eventually takes it back. The new era of female rap was here. One where competition didn't mean destruction. One where women could disagree, reconcile, and still rise together. And for that, fans gave credit where it was due, to the queen who had once been misunderstood, but had now used her voice to shift the entire culture. Nicki Minaj. In interviews that followed, Nicki remained calm and measured whenever the topic arose. "I don't do it for attention," she said in one radio interview. "I do it because we deserve better, all of us. When you've been through the fire, you either stay burnt or you become the flame." Those words resonated deeply. The flame she spoke of wasn't just hers. It belonged to every woman who had ever been underestimated, disrespected, or used. And in that light, Nicki and Cardi stood not as rivals, but as examples of what growth truly looks like. And that's the story. Nicki Minaj standing up for Cardi B, exposing Offset and unintentionally sparking one of the biggest cultural shifts hip-hop has seen in years. But here's the real question for you. Do you think Nicki was right to call Offset out publicly? Or should she have stayed silent and let Cardi handle her own situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this debate isn't over. If you're loving these deep dives into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like to keep this channel growing. This isn't just drama, it's history in the making. And every time these artists take a stand, we're watching the culture evolve right before our eyes. Stay tuned, because the next time Nicki or Cardi makes a move, we'll be right here breaking it all down, every post, every lyric, every hidden message. Until then, remember this, real queens fix each other's crowns. They don't compete for the throne.